Like everywhere in the UK
growing.
is breaking out into protest at the moment. The scale of it is unlike anything I can remember. And we'll take a look at it in this video, but for perspective, Friday saw around 20...
Like, look, the problem with the UK is that they're trying to be, and that also applies to the Europe, like they're trying to be US so much. Like, it starts even from immigrants. It usually starts from immigrants. They constantly saying that US was built on immigrants, right? It is technically right, but not this way. Not this way. Plus, immigrants that went to the US, that were building US, were not the immigrants that you bumped, your whole life. That's the first thing. Second thing, they had full control of those immigrants. Till this day, especially till this day, they have full control over immigrants. Like in Delhi, especially after 9/11, the CIA, NCA, FBI funding just went through the roof. The control of a country that intelligence had just went through the roof, especially after 9/11. So they got full control of civilians, non-civilians, the immigrants, illegal immigrants and stuff like that. Like you can see this right now with the eyes. Like they literally can catch easily any Mexican and threw him back to the Mexico, and nothing will happen. No revolution, no civil war, no coup, nothing. Just they got full control of a country. It's just that big. But in UK, in Europe, I don't know. They putting so many regulations, restrictions on citizens who was born in UK, but not putting on immigrants that came to, who are usually illegally immigrants or just maybe legal immigrants who are not citizens, right? They're giving them full freedom of what they can do, applying to, it's part of their culture, the culture that it's like, what is that all about? Like, are you crazy? Now you're having that big of a problem. So they trying to be US, but they doing completely opposite when it comes to the US. They just
protests.
It's mind-boggling,
Saturday
man.
even more, and there are more happening today. So yeah, it's huge. In fact, there are too many protests for me to keep track of or even dream of hoping to cover. And that is a good thing. The left, by comparison, funded by the Socialist Workers' Party, seem to be running out of capital and manpower. I guess there just aren't that many people you can bus up and down the country to keep annoying locals. And when they do show up, they just get humiliated, mocked, and run out of town. We'll take a look at that as well. But the reason for it, let's be honest, is relatively simple. Most of these protests are locals voicing their concerns over things that have happened in their community. So when you show up with your luxury beliefs like refugees welcome plastered on a little placard, it just doesn't really cut it. You can shout fascist and racist and them all you want, but they don't care. They're there to support their local community, and that trumps every name that you want to call them. Let's start with a protest that took place yesterday, the 9th of August in Nuneaton. Now, based on the live streams that I've watched, thousands of people showed up to this.
So those are locals, right?
And why exactly are the fine people of Nuneaton out in protest? Well, I'll tell you,
it's always about the immigrants.
Afghan men living in the local migrant hotel that the government dumped into their community are alleged to have committed a very serious assault against a 12-year-old. Now, I'm not going to go into any more of the details of that because, well, for the purposes of YouTube, but if you Google it, it's absolutely disgusting. That's all I'll say. So you're probably imagining, well, yeah, the local community, they're not going to be too pleased by this, but surely nobody is going to come along to counter-protest, right? Enter the Reddit and 4chan crossover masterpiece. A fedora-wearing neckbeard cosplaying as a priest.
Hey, on the internet, you can be whoever you want, but when you go, especially when you go to the protest, you should keep in mind, talking on the internet and talking in real life, two different things. Especially when you're going against the current. Like, you're going against the protest, you're going against the current. Current is rough, they can hurt you. So you should keep that in mind, especially in the US, for example, during the BLM. Some people got killed there, you know. So you gotta be careful going against the current.
Hate fascists. So why do you invite into the country? Why do you do it? You don't deserve that collar.
Do you think it's acceptable the police tried to cover up?
You do not deserve that collar. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve that collar, my friend. I own it. You will not. I'll take it from you. I promise you now, son.
Racism. What do you stand for? What do you stand for? Absolutely nothing. Racism.
Listen, mate, this is a genuine piece of advice. The internet and the real world, two very distinct places, and they have two different sets of rules, if you like. Because on the internet, you can condemn and harass concerned parents, and for the most part, nothing bad will happen to you. But in the real world, it just doesn't always work like that. So if you keep it up, then yeah, God help you, because one of these days you are in fact going to need Jesus. Anyway, it wasn't just Nuneaton, it was Portsmouth as well. And it wasn't just Portsmouth, it was Bournemouth. And it wasn't just Bournemouth, it was Epping.
The women of Epping are leading the charge to shut down the migrant
Like,
hotels.
it's crazy that UK and US are like two blood brothers that is pretty much have similar blood, but at the same time they got such a different approach. Like in US, locals has more rights and outsider has less rights. But in UK it's a completely opposite. Like how can you be that stupid? I'm just
sitting
mind-boggling.
in the road despite the police orders. This is astonishing.
And it wasn't just Epping.
And constantly talking about their culture. Like they bring the different culture. They have the different culture, those immigrants. Like what about the UK culture? What about the Britain culture? England culture? Like what is that all about?
And it was also Solihull. And it was also Newcastle. And Norwich. And Altrincham.
Yeah, that's all over.
I think you get the point, right? I can't even talk about all of the protests because there are so many going on. And so when I see people saying, oh, that crowd looks a little bit small, you have to put it into the context of knowing that on some days there are 20 or 25 protests going on. It's huge. It is absolutely massive. And yet, how much have you heard about this on the mainstream media? How much do you think the BBC covered this? Yeah, not at all. In fact, the only news station that would touch this story is GB News. And they even spoke about how little attention it's getting from the likes of the BBC and Sky.
After 4 or 5 days of protests outside asylum hotels, after that clearly being the top issue of the day, I went to the BBC News app, and the #1 story was "It's quite windy, guys," and the #2 story was about Greg Wallace. And, you know, let's plug in a bit more to what people care about.
Frankly, I think it's really shameful that the mainstream media aren't covering these protests, but this isn't their only sin.
Look at that
right?
dog.
The story I told you earlier about Nuneaton, a BBC headline for that would look something like, 2 men from Nuneaton charged with serious assault on young girl. And it's like, stop treating us like we're idiots, okay? These guys probably arrived in the country 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months ago. They've been put into a migrant hotel, and you're trying to convince me that they're from Nuneaton. Even though they spent their entire lives in Afghanistan.
Media is also regulated by the intelligence. So the fact that they just ordering to media to cover up such a things, it's just...
Dan, you want me to think that they're
I mean, maybe they're trying, you know, to calm things up with such a with such a words, but again, it completely works the other way. Like
from Nuneaton.
Completely works
Stop
the other
it,
way.
Right? It's just ridiculous. It makes you look stupid, and it's why you are fading
Like
into irrelevance. And it's not just me saying that they're fading into irrelevance, it really is happening. They are going to Ofcom, the BBC are, and begging them to force YouTube to push the BBC in their algorithm harder. And it's like, that's not how this works, okay? The YouTube algorithm just shows people what it thinks that they want to see.
Yeah, YouTube algorithm really works
So
fine.
if people don't want to see the stories that you're covering about how windy it is or climate change or whatever it might be, whatever topic you seem to be covering today, then maybe that's a message to you to start covering the issues that people really are interested in.
Yeah.
If you did a 1 hour segment on the protests from this weekend, I guarantee you it would get millions of views, but you don't want to do that, do you? Because you have a political agenda. So yeah,
I think I know where they stole this idea from, of covering up like just with those things from Russia. Russia definitely does the same thing. They also got plenty of immigrants from Islamic countries and stuff like that. But in Russia, they have extreme control, even more control than US has over immigrants, non-Russians. Like the control is just through the roof there. So it really rarely happens, but it works. Say, but in UK, they just
YouTube are pushing people like British
they don't
Lander
control
harder
them.
than they're pushing us. Whatever, get over it, okay? You can either
but
imitate us and
they
start
stole
talking
the idea
honestly
from
about
Russia.
the issues that we're talking about, or you can just fade into irrelevance. And frankly, I don't care which you choose.
They're also covering
Speaking of
the thing with the
media, have you noticed that the lefties, the counter-protesters, never want to talk to a camera?
And this is a problem we've had before as well, people putting their signs in front of our camera. It's a free press in this country. We just want to speak to people where we can. This man trying to do the same. But there we go. I mean, all we can do is our jobs, Michelle. All we can do is our jobs. This chap very agitated. But what he hasn't got, unfortunately, is a voice. He's failing to come forward and speak.
He's pretty much only allowed to talk about the topics that he's getting funded by. So
He doesn't want to do that. He just wants to agitate next to me. So why are you protesting today? Are you from Aldershot?
No comment.
No comment. It's like it's a police interview. But there we go, Michelle. We've done what we can, trying to speak
you
to
got just police there.
people gathering here. They don't want to engage with us. We might go back on the other side and see if we can get some more interviews later. We'll join you later in the programme.
I actually find this quite bizarre because if you're passionate about something, so passionate that you've turned up to a protest and you see yourself as a reasoned, logical person, then wouldn't you want to go onto a camera and speak to the media and try to explain to people using reason and logic why your position is correct and bring them over to your way of thinking? And so the fact that you are reticent to do that tells me something. It tells me that you see yourself as either not rational, not logical, or that everything you're doing is based on emotion, or perhaps the £40 that the Socialist Workers' Party put in your pocket. Maybe you want £80 from the Socialist Workers' Party if you're going to have to speak to the media, because that's a little bit more taxing. Look, I don't know. It's very, very strange. But if these guys want to just stay in their echo chamber and preach to the converted, then again, I don't really care. So be it. If that's what you want to do, fine. It just means that ordinary people are going to win a hell of a lot faster. Okay, let me leave you with one final thought, because I know this is actually a kind of contentious topic, and it's about peaceful protests and why I think peaceful protests are the right way forwards.
It's the right way, but it doesn't work like that.
Let me
it's
make the
always
assumption that you want as many people to show up at these protests.
The bigger the protest, the less peaceful it's gonna be. It's just it's universal. It's sadly,
well, more
it's
people
a
are gonna show
reality.
up at a protest that they think is likely to be peaceful.
You can try to be as peaceful as possible. It is just a reality.
Than one that they think is likely to turn into a riot. And so by
Sadly,
ensuring
nothing
that
you
you
can
have a
do about
consistent track record of peaceful protests, more and more people will start to gather. It will snowball. And the people that will now decide that they're going to turn out will no longer just be 25-year-old aggrieved young men. You'll start to see a lot more women and a lot more elderly people coming along. And that is exactly the kind of optics that the BBC and the Sky News hate, because they don't want to put a story out about how, 500 women from Epping came out dressed in pink to a protest against the local migrant hotel because they're really worried about their children. They want to put out a story about how 15, 20-year-old guys wearing balaclavas smashed up a bunch of police vans. So again, I think it's really, really important to keep these peaceful protests going, and you'll start to see the effect snowball. More and more people will have the confidence to come out and join you. They'll bring their families, they'll bring their friends, and that's a really powerful thing. Just seeing a sea of pink, you know, thousands of women who are really, really unhappy with the situation.
Pink.
That's really powerful.
Why
They
he
can't
decided to
escape from
pick a
that forever.
pink one?
I'll leave it there.
Is it a
Please do
universal
remember why
colour
we're doing
for
this,
women?
okay? There are literally our own homeless people are
His lips are pretty
dying
pink.
sometimes in the streets, like the pallbearer
who was
for
pallbearer
Princess Diana,
first?
a military veteran, died of hypothermia in the streets on this country. And yet if you arrive across the channel from South Sudan, we'll put a roof over your head within 24 hours. It's completely insane, completely broken system. It does not favor the citizens of this country, and it has to end.
Just as I told you, like Britain definitely needs to change their approach. Same as US, to do the same as US, you give more regulations, more restrictions for non-citizens and less for citizens. It's just
So keep all of that in mind. Do not stop.
so-
Keep up the
it's just
pressure.
logical.
We have to turn this around for our country one way or another. Please do leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Go and watch my last video if you haven't, by the way. The Brits are angry one. Why Brits are angry. It's probably the most important video I've made. It's kind of tailored towards
Yeah, but UK somehow is doing it the opposite way. It's just mind-boggling. Let's see how long it's gonna keep going. Like, I think it's gonna change sooner or later. It's gonna change for sure.